Well, listen, if they haven't kicked us out by now, I guess they never will. That's right. The Sideline is back, episode 2, Athletes Forum podcast, College Sports Crew. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for coming back, right? We wrapped up the quarterfinals, right? The quarterfinals last week, right? If you didn't already pay attention to the YouTube, I went to the Orange Bowl. I had the opportunity to see Oregon, Dan Lanning, the team out west, right? Play the heavy loaded Texas Tech financially funded team, and it wasn't a great game, but it was a good experience, right? So check out that blog if you haven't already done so. It's on College Sports Crew page, and if you haven't already done so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, right? It's important you subscribe to the channel, right? Be a friend, tell a friend, in the words of Pat McAfee. Listen, we are back for another Wednesday, episode 2 of the Sideline. And just to kind of give you guys a forecast, we will be primarily football until college football is over, and then we will transition into some basketball, into some draft talk, right? But we're going to be football until the national championship. And with that being said, we got games. We got games tomorrow, Fiesta Bowl 7:30. We got games Friday, the Peach Bowl, right? We got NFL, right? And we just are gearing up for a fantastic football stretch in January, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the game tomorrow. Let's preview the game tomorrow. And yes, you know what game I am talking about. It is probably my favorite game that I'm going to keep an eye on, and that is Ole Miss versus the U. Miami versus the SIP. Listen, Thursday night, all eyes are on one of the most intriguing matchups this week. Miami versus Ole Miss. Spread versus tempo. Talent versus aggression. Two programs who are literally trying to prove they belong in the national championship conversation, right? This one has fireworks written all over it, right? This one has fireworks written all over it, right? So let's talk about it. Miami versus Ole Miss, right? It's not really about talent, to be perfectly honest with you. This is more about who folds when the game speeds up, right? You can't trust Mario, right? But then again, Ole Miss can't win without Lane, and something or someone is going to have to give in this game, right? So let's set the stage. This game is not just about wins, right? It's about the identity. It's about Miami is trying to reassert itself into a physical, fast NFL caliber program, while Ole Miss, they're trying to show that, listen, this is not just Lane Kiffin's offense. We win big games, not just headlines, right? And listen, they got a better record than Lane does in the playoffs, right? Ole Miss 2-0 on the Pete Golding. Since Lane has left, the 2 games he had been at, the LSU women's basketball game and the LSU bowl game, 0-2, right? You look into that however you may think. But, you know, there's a lot of things that we're going to dive into here, so let's not waste any time. Miami, did they learn from that SMU game? Because this game is going to be fairly similar. A fast, simple game, a team that literally gassed Miami that first half, right? Miami put up some numbers too, but they were definitely gassed in that second half. Really neutralized that pass rush. Did they learn from that SMU game? And really, can Miami do it again, right? You think about Texas A&M, you think about Ohio State. Can they do it again and get that one win to get them back to the national championship, a place that they haven't been since the early 2000s, right? A defense that has been good against mobile quarterbacks. Can they do it again, right? Miami's success really starts with discipline and speed. This roster is built to fly around to the ball, fast, physical. A team, once they start playing with confidence, could be in trouble, right? You think about some of the key players from Miami. Carson Beck, he's really the engine to that offense, right? He really gets things going, all right, especially if he's going, right? And if he's playing championship level, veteran level, really just clean ball, which is something that he's been having to do the past couple weeks, Miami's going to be fine. Miami's going to be fine. If they're not playing outside of their realm, right? And if they play their style of ball, which is what they're going to do is run the ball, they'll be fine. And speaking of running the ball, Fletcher Jr., man, Miami wants to be balanced, right? And if they can establish the run early against a rush defense that is ranked north of 50 in the FCS, is going to slow down this Ole Miss tempo, right? It's going to keep that defense on the field, right? And once you keep that defense on the field and tired, the Ole Miss offense is really not going to be able to get into rhythm. So that's something to keep an eye on. But we all know the biggest X factor. And I'm talking about those two monsters on the edge, Nakeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain, right? We know those are the X factors in disrupting the game. But as I mentioned before, did they learn from that SMU game where they kind of got exposed and they're kind of going to be facing a similar style game, right? You think about Ole Miss Ole Miss is kind of dealing with the Brian Kelly Notre Dame to LSU theory, right? Lane leaves Ole Miss because he doesn't feel like they can win a national championship, goes to LSU. Ironically, both coaches did it and went to LSU. Similar to what the Brian Kelly did in Notre Dame. Left Notre Dame because he didn't think that they could win a national championship to go to LSU. Now, we know how that panned out, and we know what happened with Notre Dame. Last year, went to the Natty, although they didn't win it, but Marcus Freeman proved that that's a possibility. Is Pete Golden about to do the same thing, right? Less than a month and a half of being the head coach. Is Pete Golden really about to take this Ole Miss team to the Natty, right? Now, they are a team that's dealing with distractions all week, right? Is Charlie Weiss Jr. going to coach? Are the offensive coaching staff's going to be there, right? Obviously, the portal open up, right? So it's going to be interesting to see, did those distractions come into play this game, right? Because this is a team that's clearly determined to prove that they belong, right? It feels like they kind of got that chip on their shoulder, right? But they're clearly trying to prove that they belong. And they're tired of it's because of Lane thing. I know that for a fact. They're tired because of that. And nobody wants to feel bad. Like, the players don't want us to feel bad for them. They just want to go play ball. So how distracted are they, right? Dealing with the whole Lane Kiffin thing, right? Because he's going to tweet about it. Lane's going to put his fingerprints all over Ole Miss until they're done, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how all that pans out. But Ole Miss, right, they're coming in confident. You saw the win they just had versus Georgia, right? You saw that this was a team that really proved that they were the better ball club than Georgia that game, right? And they were not afraid to really control the game, because that's what they did for the most part, right? They made Georgia play their type of game. And Georgia really didn't want to get to a shootout versus Ole Miss. Now, they proved that they could win that, but Georgia wants to dominate, the game, running the ball and defensively. But Ole Miss changed a lot of that for them, and you saw. So they're coming in with a lot of confidence, as we all know. Trinidad Chambliss, and I was on record saying this, is my favorite quarterback really in the Final Four, despite, the two other potential 1 and 2 draft picks in the other game. I'm a Trinidad fan. Right? I like, his moxie. I like his confidence. I like how he's able to ball out and create, and really decisive when he's throwing the ball. Right? He's getting the ball out quick. So Trinidad, he's going to have to get the ball out quick in this game. Right? He's going to have to play fast and really have that Miami defense play sideline to sideline in this game. You'll see how it pans out. I think some of his receivers, you think about Stribling, right? You think about Wallace. Sneaky matchup versus the Miami DBs that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because if Ole Miss offense is going to get going, they're going to have to neutralize that pass rush, slow that pass rush down, right? Which means the ball's going to have to come out quick, which means those guys are going to have to make plays. Whether it's 3-step, bubble screen, I don't know how long Chambliss is going to have to throw the ball deep downfield, which means that those receivers are going to have to make plays, turn 3 into 6, right? Turn 2 into 8. Right, so we'll see how all that's gonna pan out. But offensive line plays and defensive line play is going to be the key factor in this game. It's going to determine this game on both sides of the ball. I think we all know that, right? So how does Ole Miss handle that for Miami is gonna be the biggest question, right? Because Miami has the advantage on both sides, right? On both sides. So it's gonna be this game tomorrow. It's going to be so exciting to watch. I'm intrigued to watch. I may have to jump on an instant reaction, right, to kind of see, what went right, what didn't, right, and kind of see who's going to the Natty and talk about that, right. Now, one thing to point out in this game is that it's not really about stats, right? It's not really about stats. If Miami controls the line of scrimmage, Ole Miss is in trouble. It's as simple as that. Tell me I'm wrong, right? And I'll say it again. It's not about stats. If Miami controls the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, they will win the game. They might win it by 10 or more, right? Because they could play. They have the speed to play with an Ole Miss up-tempo type offense, right? But how is Ole Miss's offense going to move the ball? How's Ole Miss defense going to stop the run, right? Because I'll tell you what, one thing we realized in that Miami-Ohio State game is Miami was great on first down, which led to manageable downs on second and third down, which led to long extended drives, right? Ole Miss has to dominate first down. They need to get Miami behind the sticks early in this game, right? So it's going to be interesting to find out. But if Miami can disrupt the timing of the Ole Miss tempo, and if Ole Miss neutralizes the rush, those are probably going to be the key factors in this game. However, this game is going to be decided with discipline and depth, right? Miami has the athletes. Ole Miss has the rhythm, right? Whoever wins the first quarter, in my opinion, is probably going to be the team to control the whole game. I think that's Miami. I'm picking Miami to win, and that's going up against my SEC ties as a Gators fan, right? So Miami goes back to the Natty, back to Miami, play the Orange Bowl at home, right? And Ole Miss, it was a hell of a season, all right? Drop a comment, let me know what you guys think, all right? Let's pay some bills here, man. We got a lot of things brewing over here at College Sports Crew, right? So you think about our lineup, right? On Mondays, right? It's Veterans Voice podcast with my guy Coach Pops, all right, and Sean and the crew, right? And then Tuesdays we talk ball. We talk ball with the gang. We got Sweet Tea in the SEC, right? All right. We got me on Thursdays. We got the sideline on Wednesdays, right? We got reaction shows later in the week. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, because this is where we have the clear, tough, hard-nosed conversations when we're talking ball. All right. Next, let's dive into the portal a little bit, since the portal's been jumping, right? The portal's been going out of control lately, and there are a lot of things brewing. All right, and we're gonna quickly scroll through them. Right, I'm gonna quickly point out some things, and then I'm gonna give you my 5 takeaways. But first, things that just dropped: Aiden Childs, right, on his third school, going to Northwestern. It's gonna be interesting to see how he pairs up with Chip Kelly in that Northwestern offense, right? Damon Williams, that's a surprise. He must know something. There must be a team out there asking for his services, right? Who's that team going to be? Who still needs a quarterback, right? Could we see him potentially at LSU? Does that mean Sam Levitt is not going to LSU? We're spitballing here, but for him to enter the portal this late in the game after multiple quarterbacks have signed, there's got to be something brewing. Some other big ones, right? Nebraska, they have the quarterback after losing Minchie to Kentucky in that Kentucky battle. Penn State gets a corner. Colorado gets another JMU guy, right? So it looks like DJ Lagway is going to Baylor for a visit, which I think he might end up there, right? I think he's going to eventually, end up in Alabama. J.C. Brown, that's a huge pickup for Lane Kiffin over at LSU. The portal is going crazy, right? So before we dive, I won't dive too much into this, but let me kind of give you my share thoughts on the portal and my takeaways from the portal, right? And this is what I think. I think Indiana is a team that is rebuilding, and they are rebuilding fast, right? Brandon Sorsby for Texas Tech, Josh Hoover for Indiana, probably some of the best fits in regards to talent and new team they're going to. Outside of Fernando Mendoza, Josh Hoover might be a better fit for that Indiana system than Fernando Mendoza. I'm not saying Hoover's going to be the top pick next year, but in regards to how he runs that RPO, which is something that Indiana likes to do, Indiana's going to be just fine next year, right? Indiana's going to be just fine next year. What's going on in Alabama? They are losing a lot of commitments. Just lost a five-star freshman, losing a lot of depth, a lot of D linemen. You saw them get blown out versus Indiana. That's probably not going to be kosher to rebuilding that roster. Some things that they're going to have to clean up and get built back together, right? Florida, you got ball, you won. That was the single most, outside of getting the quarterback, and obviously we got Philo from Georgia Tech. You got Jaden Ball, you won. That's all. Listen, I see a lot of Baylor ties coming into Florida, obviously the Georgia Tech ties, but it was important to get Jaden Ball back, and they did. Now run the damn ball, right? Next, who's the next domino to fall? I'm looking at Sam Levitt. I'm looking at DJ Lagway. I'm looking at Dylan Raiola, right? I think a lot's going to pan out, especially if Oregon loses this week, right? I think Sam Levitt is maybe the first domino that's going to affect a lot of this, right? But it's interesting that some of the top names we're not hearing about are kind of quiet. Kind of quiet, right? Interesting. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you guys think. All right. Next, last and certainly not least, we're getting to the rematch. We're getting to the Las Vegas Raiders, powered by TB12 bowl game, and that is the rematch. Indiana versus Oregon in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Indiana versus Oregon in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. You're going to hear it. It's hard to beat the team twice. That's what everyone says, right? It's hard to beat the team twice, right? But let's talk about it. Let's kind of dive into, this and everything that's going on in this game, because this one is going to have people glued to their TVs, right? You think about all the storylines. You think about Cignetti and what he's been doing to these teams. Look at the past couple teams in Alabama, Ohio State, right? Penn State. Like, Cignetti's been like dog running through all these teams as of late, right? His only close game was Oregon. I think it was a 30 to 20, right? So let's kind of dive into this game, because this game, Oregon heads into this game. I don't know if they're expected to win, but college football has never really cared that much about Indiana until these past 2 years. I got to be real. This is a clash of speed and discipline and momentum, right? And this exactly is the type of game that can get uncomfortable if you're not locked in. So, like I said, I went to the Orange Bowl. I went to watch Oregon play. Wasn't really impressed with that offense. Wasn't really impressed with that offensive game plan, right? And if you're going to beat Indiana, you're going to have to put up points. We all know the statistics. One of the top defenses, red zone defenses, third down defenses, turnover defense. Like, in Indiana, all they do is play ball. And if you don't know, Google them, right? So when I'm looking at this game, let's look at it from an Oregon perspective. What to watch out for. Oregon's identity is simple: speed, efficiency, pressure. Lanning's going to be aggressive. He has to be aggressive, right? But you know who else has to be aggressive? Dante Moore. This has to be the game Dante Moore really takes over and takes control of Oregon football, right? Not necessarily worry about draft, but Oregon football, right? This is the game where, not necessarily that he has to prove he's better than the other guy, but like I said, I wasn't really impressed with that offensive performance versus Tech in the Orange Bowl, right? Next, Oregon's got to run the ball. Number one rushing offense in NCAA. We all know that. Oregon has to run the ball to be successful. And it's basic static quo. We all know you got to run the ball, you got to stop the run, but especially for Oregon, because that sets up the play action, the downfield, the intermediate passes that this offense likes to run. Kenyon Sadiq is a dog. Listen, I've never seen a grown man look the way he looks, and I really want to see him have an impact in this Indiana game, because I don't think they have a safety or a corner or even a linebacker that could guard him. So I think Kenyon Sadiq has to be the difference maker in this game, for Oregon, right? You think about explosive plays. Oregon lives off those chunk plays, right? Touchdowns, not field goals. If Indiana quarterback is uncomfortable early, then I think it could potentially be a long night. But you got to play 4 quarters, because Mendoza has been proven to come back late. Despite if he plays a bad 3 quarters, just ask Penn State about the last drive. Just ask Ohio State about the last drive. Ask Oregon. Ask Iowa. Mendoza is clutch when he needs to, right? And then you look at it from an Indiana perspective, right? Out of 136 seasons, this organization, this institution has had 0 10-win seasons, a 41% win percentage, until this guy from JMU named Kurt Signetti came along, and he brings about 14 JMU cats with him, right? And what does he do the last 2 seasons? 2 10-win seasons, 92% win percentage, right? Google him. Right? Signetti is a dog, and he learned from the best. He learned from, obviously, his time in Alabama, right? And then leaving to be a head coach, and then at IUP, and then going to JMU, and now he's at IU, right? So from the Indiana perspective, for Indiana, this game has to be about just dominance and disruption, right? You don't want to trade punches here, right? Now, granted, you've proven that you can do that and win those games, but play your style of ball, be disruptive, right, and dominate, right? Avoid turnovers, right? Mendoza's going to have to do that. They can't afford short fields, right? And they continue to do a good job of stopping the run. I think that first game when they played Oregon ran for 30 carries for 82 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. Do that again. They need big linebacker play, in my opinion. I just talked about Kane Sadiq is a dog. Kane Sadiq could change this game, right? So how are you going to cover him? Does the speed of Oregon come into play here? And if so, how do you plan on defending that? And you've done it before. I'm not doubting Indiana, right? They most certainly can do it. But it's hard to beat a team twice. It is hard to beat a team twice, and we've already talked about that plenty of times throughout this. All right. So what does this game look like? Early on, Indiana needs to try to just play their style of ball, really shorten the game now, right? Because by shortening the game, you're keeping Oregon's offense off the field, you're keeping them out of rhythm. Long drives, safe throws, right? That RPO game has to be effective here, right? Oregon's going to try to push tempo. They're going to try to test your depth, right? And if Oregon scores early, this could get interesting, right? Because then, from what I'm thinking as it could be a low-scoring game, it could possibly turn into a shootout, because that means Oregon might have found something. Will Stein might have found something that he could take advantage of, and if he's taking advantage of this early, he only has more in the bag. So I think the winner of this game, I don't want to say that. I know you think where I was going with this. I don't want to say that. Listen, I'll say this. Indiana fans have been great. They showed a lot of support, right? Continue to show support. Drop a comment. And listen, I did you wrong the last week's prediction, right? Because I thought Alabama could have did a lot better. I was wrong, and I apologize about that, right? Indiana fans are showing a lot of support. For me, it's hard to go against Oregon. I know. I can't believe I'm saying it. It's hard for me to pick against Oregon because I feel like they've been waiting for this game since the clock struck 0 in Eugene earlier in the season. They've been waiting for this. Meanwhile, Indiana's been having to play a hard schedule or a competitive schedule, or really been battle tested, right? You go on to Penn State, you go on to Alabama, you go on to play Ohio State, and now you got to play your toughest match for a second time. Listen, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm going Oregon. And that sets up for my national championship, Oregon versus Miami. Back in Miami, right? Back at the Orange Bowl. Maybe I'll get another vlog. Let me talk with some of my connections, right? But this is going to be a hell of a game, right? I'm excited to watch this game. You all should be excited too, right? We got, Ole Miss versus Miami. We got Indiana versus Oregon. Who's going to the Natty? My pick, Oregon versus Miami in the national championship, right? Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. But more importantly, subscribe to the channel. Show some love. Listen, Athletes Forum Podcast, College Sports Crew. This is The Sideline. Thank you all for tuning in. Episode 2. It's only got to get better.